Hello and welcome to another Vectorworks Teaser Tuesday question and answer session. We do these every Thursday following the teaser that came out on the Tuesday. However, if you haven't had a chance to see the teaser video yet, we'll go ahead and play that in just a moment. The feature we're going to do today is called Image Effects. The video will give you a good rundown of what it does, but these were made by our engineer, Zachary Sarver. Unfortunately, he's in the, well, not unfortunately, it's a lovely day there, he's in the Georgia office in Atlanta. He couldn't be here and we couldn't get the streaming working at the moment, so I'll just go ahead and read a little bio of him, and he is available for questions in the forum. So if you go to the forum page, you can ask him questions directly. Zachary Sarver began coding when he discovered QBasic on Windows 95 a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. He went to study computer science at Jacksonville State University before completing his PhD in mathematics at Auburn University. He still proves theorems and picks up new languages, programming languages, as hobbies. He's been with Vectorworks for a little more than a year, and he already made image effects from scratch. His favorite things are video games and cats. So that's Zach Sarver. We have really clever people here. I'm glad cleverer people than I make Vectorworks. So now we'll show the Teaser Tuesday video, and then we'll come right back. The core focus of Vectorworks 2019 is quality. However, not just quality of the software itself, but also the quality of life of the user. We took into careful consideration common workflows and regular usage patterns and tried to select features and improvements for this year that would make something that you already had or already did even better or easier than it had been in the past. This deceptively simple feature has the ability to save you time in a number of different ways. The first and foremost, what does image effects do? This feature allows you to take an image or rendered viewport in your drawing, even viewports rendered in previous versions, and instantly apply an array of various color and light balancing options. Unlike camera effects, image effects don't need you to re-render the viewport or wait for a lengthy processing period. They're nearly instantaneous. We can select either a viewport or a bitmap. This will work on resources as well, so we'll be able to go into the resource browser and apply these images to textures, image fills, Vectorworks backgrounds as well. To enable image effects, you simply check the box here near the bottom, and then to edit them, you click Image Effects. A preview window will appear. If this isn't large enough, you can grab this and improve the size even more. It'll expand to as much screen as you've got. You can also find this in the right-click menu when you're editing viewports. It'll bring you to the same place. These effects like contrast, saturation, and sepia work all fairly instantaneously. Not only is the preview instantaneous here as well, but as soon as we click apply, those changes apply right to the image immediately. We don't have to wait, we don't have to do anything. And I can turn them off again. So that source image is still saved. We haven't deleted it or overwritten it at all. Then if I check this box again, it'll bring up the same settings that I applied before. They'll be remembered per item. And as a little side note, this effectively allows you to create black and white renders. You can simply reset this to the original, set saturation all the way down, and you have a grayscale image without having to change lighting, textures, without having to export to a different option. And it's a little bit different than the black and white only option that you might be used to in Vectorworks. However, you can get something very similar if you turn the contrast up very high and turn the saturation down as well. You'll get a much more stark look to it. And again, reset will bring you right back where you were. But we didn't want to stop there. We wanted the 1.0 version of this feature to have more than you might expect. So we integrated image effects into the eyedropper tool, allowing you to pick up and apply the same set of effects applied to one item to another with just 2 clicks. So for instance here, if we adjust the temperature of this and give this a very warm look, apply that, we could then simply go to the eyedropper tool, go to the settings, and then we'll just take image effects. There we are. Pick up the image effects from this one and place them on another. And it doesn't have to be the same image either. You can do this with multiple different objects from any source. So the image effects set is the same, even if you're going from an image like we are here on the right to a viewport on the left. It's the same image effect settings being applied to both. Even further than that, if you don't want to just manually copy them from one to another, in image effects, similar to how we did the publish and DWG interfaces, there's a saved setup here. We've included a few defaults as well, like I showed you earlier. There's a few sepia tints and a few pre-configured warm and cool settings here that'll give you some control. And you can manage these and add more of them or save them as you like. We'll simply go to Active Settings, Revert, and for instance, if we want to have an inverted one, we can simply save this as inverted colors. There we are, Apply, and that'll be available anytime we come into this menu later. So even again, if we go to the viewport, even though we modified an image before, we'll be able to summon that inverted colors option back up and apply it immediately. And any level of complexity that I use here can be saved that way. It doesn't have to be one of the defaults. However, the main purpose of it was this. We wanted to reduce or completely remove the number of times that you needed to step out of Vectorworks. Whether you had to step out of Vectorworks to wait for a rendering to recomplete, or if you had to export to an external application like Photoshop or GIMP in order to edit just slight changes you wanted to make to your file. We saved you having to export the image, editing it in Photoshop, resaving it, and then bringing it back into Vectorworks. Because if you made another change, you'd have to apply that afterwards. Those image effects will stay. So if I go into this viewport, for instance, and I change some classes and layers, and I update that viewport, those image effects will stay. So I can remove classes and layers, and everything will maintain the way I want. So once you apply a set of image effects, they'll stay for the duration of that viewport or that object's existence. And again, where this really saves time, changing things, even like these three examples in the middle here. A very cool lighting on the left, a very warm lighting on the right, and a very popping contrasty in the center. These would have been three completely separate renders before, and they took about 15 minutes each. I would have had to wait over an hour in order to do all of these separate renderings, and I was able to do this in maybe 4 minutes. Simply duplicate that same viewport and apply image effects to it. And just one more quick thing before we go. We wanted to clarify what soft edges does. So in image effects, you can see we have the soft edges here. What it does is it takes the edge of the image and applies a transparent gradient to the edges of it. But we didn't want that to just be for square images either. So what we've done is made sure, on the top three here, you can see the crop is visible. And you can see the hard crop showing the shape of these crop objects. A standard square crop, a relatively common circular crop, and then the more special case custom polygonal crop for it. Soft edges will work with any of those cropping options. So you can see here, we can select a cropped viewport, edit the image effects, turn that up just a little bit more, and get a very nice traced effect that we can use to overlay this or composite it with other images as well. This is the first of many features we hope are going to save you a lot of time and make your life better in Vectorworks 2019. There we are, and we're back. So what I wanted to remind everyone of at the very beginning of that is instantaneous. The point of this feature being added where it was is so that it is instantaneous. Unlike the camera effects that we added, I think either last year or a few years ago, where you have to complete a render in Renderworks in order to see it, and you can't use it in Hidline and a few other things like that. The point of it was that it is instantaneous, it is non-destructive, and that you can change it as much as you like. You just keep duplicating those viewports or images and try as many as you like you saw in the last segment there. I duplicated those viewports in seconds and made those modifications to each of those. It was no problem at all. Before, if I had wanted those, I would have had to set up separate light settings in each of those files, maybe separate texture settings and Renderworks settings, and then rendered 9 completely separate images. It literally would have taken me 9 times longer to do it before today. So that's really what this feature is for. It's to do quick things that you do all the time, almost instantly. And here we go with the questions now. Some of these are from the forum from yesterday or Tuesday when we actually released the announcement, and some of them are from the chat on the Facebook announcement. The first one is, and we also have a question on on-demand tessellation that I'll put at the very end. The first question is Kevin McAllister, and he asks, are the saved image effects resources? They're not resources, they are applied to resources. So they're kind of like tags for classes and layers and like the description information for classes. They're associated with a resource. So for instance, you could edit a resource in the resource manager and then apply image effects to it. It would then be applied to that resource, and everywhere that used that resource would then show you the image effects. So it's a little different than a resource on its own. However, it is saved like a style. So in the very top right of the image effects dialog, there's an option that's basically it's just so you can save and manage your styles there. It works the same as the door and window styles. It's that same interface. Can you use them? Same question from Kevin. Can you use them on images that are part of textures? Yes. So the important part of that is that, and I don't think I made that clear enough in the video, in the teaser video. The point of it is, so for instance, You can use it on the image-based textures. You can't use it on a texture that comes from noise or a texture that comes from just reflectivity. It has to be the image-based for the color portion of the texture. So for instance, I have a lot of users that will get textures of wood, like this table we're sitting at, or stone, but a lot of the time it'll be a deep brown or a harsh, not a gray, but like a yellowy cream or even a blue or brick red, and they need it to be a different color. Before, you could take a color filter and apply it, but it applied over top the other color. It didn't swap out the color. So if you had a red brick image and you wanted to make it blue, you couldn't just put blue on top of it, it would turn purple. So you had to see how you could get the additive color to work with it, and it took a lot of messing around with it to get it right. It was easier to just bring it into something like Photoshop or GIMP, extract the color, and then apply the filter on top of it. Now you don't have to do that. You can basically set the texture to, this is just one example, set it to grayscale, then that filtered color that you add on top of it in the actual image editing for the, in the texture editing dialog, then that color will just be applied to the grayscale image, so red will be red, blue will be blue, for instance. It's much neater way of controlling it without being destructive. You can always change that after the fact, and it has the added benefit of everywhere you use that texture, it then updates that texture right away. So it goes all the way downstream to the final render. Jeff Kisko asks, when you say this feature can be used on resources, does that mean better resource control over Renderworks textures? Yes, sorry, I should have done that question first. My previous answer is to that question. And then our design from the forums asks, since they're not resources, can the image effects be applied from one file to another using the eyedropper tool? Yes, it's just not on by default. So in the eyedropper preferences, on the very bottom center, I believe it's other attributes. There's a checkbox that just says image effects. You can just check that. It can copy not only from one viewport in one file to a viewport in another file, but you can also copy it from an image in one file to a viewport in another file, or for an image in one file to a viewport in that same file. You can take an image effect from anything that has an image effect and give it to anything else that has an image effect. As long as it supports an image effect, it will let you transfer that as an attribute with the eyedropper tool. Andrew Davies asks, do image effects work on imported PDFs? Not directly. However, Zach has said that is something that he can take a look at. It won't be something that would come out directly in the first release of 2019, but he would take a look and see if that's possible. The workaround at the moment is you simply ungroup that PDF and just modify ungroup if you didn't know this. Some people don't know you can do that to PDF pages. And then you'll have a bitmap image in the background and then usually some border geometry and some geometry on top. You can then just select that background bitmap image and then apply the image effect and you'll get what you want, group all that back together, and it functions basically as a PDF anyway. So we'll see if we can do it so that you don't need that extra step, but if you're in a hurry, that's a good way to do it for now. The next question was, if I convert a Vectorworks 2019 file to Vectorworks 2018, are the adjustments lost or retained, but with no further adjustment possible? We made the decision, and I agree with this decision, to just strip the image effects entirely when it goes backwards, because image effects require either a finished image or a finished Renderworks viewport. If you had a whole bunch of viewports rendered and you'd applied image effects to them and you moved them back into 2018, if we kept the image effects and then you had to update those viewports, you would then lose the image effects. It wouldn't be able to apply it again because 2018 of course can't do that. If we strip them entirely, then you're just going to go back and then every time you update it in 2019, it'll still look the way it should. Generally, if you're going to be doing presentation stuff, your newest version is often the one that will get it last before it goes out. So for now, it's just in 2019. In 2020, of course, image effects would be able to transfer backwards as long as they were supported in 2018. But for now, 2019. But for now, they will just be stripped when you go backwards because 2018 cannot handle it. The next thing, let's check the live. Let's see. Oh, you're welcome, Andrew. He was just thanking me for the PDF drawing. Oh, I wanted to address something else first. A lot of people have been commenting on the other teaser videos, just looking for like architectural features or MEP stuff. We've already decided which things we're going to tease. It won't change. We are not, however, teasing the biggest features of Vectorworks 2019. We're just picking the ones that we wanted to share with you. There are a lot of very architectural focused features coming. The next one is actually really good. Next week, if you care about architectures and you work with symbols on a regular basis, pay attention. Feel free to ask for any features and enhancements you like. It's still fine to ask for them there. However, if you've done it in the Facebook chat, please also go to the wish list section of the forum and submit it there. There, other users can upvote it, it can be seen, and I can file it as a wish list request. I don't always catch everything that comes in the Facebook live chats because there's so many individual posts, but please go to the forums and put your wishes there, then they can get upvotes and they can get more backing from other users. That's the best place to do it. Here we go. The final one was a bonus question for the on-demand tessellation we demoed last time. This is Tom Klaber. Apologies if I butchered that name. Has anything been done to cut down on unnecessary redraws? I'm glad that redraws will be faster, but Vectorworks takes every opportunity in the world to redraw. It's its favorite thing. And he says he has 4 heavy viewports, that changing a setting on one viewport made all those viewports redraw. On-demand tessellation doesn't necessarily stop that from happening. Now, that particular instance was found to be a bug, and we're going to be fixing it. However, there was no point in fixing it in a system we were going to replace this year, so I'm going to go ahead and check that to make sure that's not happening this time. We'll get that fixed before launch. But the point of that is you don't have to wait for it to finish redrawing in order to keep working anymore. So even if it was going to, if you had 50 viewports on a page and you just wanted to work on one that you were zoomed in on, even if it is redrawing all those, it'll do it in the background. So you can go about your business editing a viewport, leaving symbols, moving things around, and you don't need to wait for the other things to redraw. In previous versions of Vectorworks, you had to wait for everything to finish before you could give it more input. And in 2019, that will no longer be the case. It's not as obvious as you might think, and even though in my video I tried to make it very obvious, it was not so you will definitely see it. If you haven't, as soon as we go live with 2019, get the demo and give it a shot. It's really nice. You'll love it. Thank you again. Oh, we had a question on, has the release date for 2019 been set? There are 2 more teasers left before the release. So that is about everything. I think we've got all the questions. There we are. Thank you for joining us again for a Teaser Tuesday. Again, any questions you have or comments you have, please put them in the chat or put them on the forum, and we'll take them. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week, same time, same date. Have a good one.